Go ahead.
Boumediene versus Bush by Kieran McCabe and
Sam Mate.
How did the case start? So, in November of 2001, the U.S. launched a global war on terror, and 20 male terrorists were placed in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, which is a prison. Guantanamo Bay prison, which is in Cuba, and these men have been accused of making plans to attack the U.S. embassy, and they were quickly named as terrorists and the worst of the worst. And when they got there, they weren't allowed a fair trial or the due process of law and or a lawyer. And 1 month after the 20 men arrived, they filed the first case for a habeas corpus, which is a fair trial. And originally the United States wanted to keep this whole case a secret.
Okay, so who is Lakhdar Boumediene? So Lakhdar Boumediene is an Algerian citizen. He has a wife and 2 daughters, which actually he went right after he's transferred to Paris. He went and ate lunch with them, a first in like 7 years. Boumediene worked as an aid worker for the Red Crescent, which is like the doppelganger of the Red Cross. He was currently stationed in Bosnia. Him and his 5 co-workers were arrested there under the accusation that they were planning to bomb the U.S. Embassy. One of his co-workers, Balakam Ben Sayah, was linked to an Al-Qaeda leader, making him a direct associate.
Prioritization, the society or the individual. In this case, the needs of the society were considered much more important because the military believed that Boumediene was a terrorist, and to protect the mass population, they ransacked him in his home in Bosnia, and they brought him to Guantanamo Bay, which could have stopped a potential terrorist attack.
So what was the Patriot Act and how does it relate to this case? So the Patriot Act was meant to help the U.S. combat terrorism, and unfortunately it violated the First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, and the Fifth Amendment. So it relates to this case in the Guantanamo Bay, which is that's short for, or GITMO is short for Guantanamo Bay. Boumediene wasn't allowed to express himself, and the military seized Boumediene without a warrant. He also wasn't given a fair trial or a lawyer.
Which civil liberties were violated in this case? The amendments that were violated were the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, and the Sixth Amendment. In this case, Boumediene had the Patriot Act accused against him, which he wasn't allowed to express himself. The Amendment 4, no unreasonable searches or seizures, and the military broke into his home and kidnapped and ransacked him. And Amendment number 5, no person shall be held for a crime unless proven guilty. And detainees like Boumediene were held in Guantanamo Bay without being proven guilty in a proper court of law. And number 6, the right to a speedy trial. Boumediene was originally not allowed for a speedy trial, but eventually was awarded one when the Supreme Court ruled that the detainee should have some basic rights.
Okay, so was the U.S. government justified in their actions, and were their actions successful? So the U.S. government has a justification because they stopped a number of possible terrorist attacks that could have happened, but the way they treated those detainees in Guantanamo Bay has no justification. So like the way they treated them was sexually assaulting them and physically assaulting them. That's just flat out inhumane.
What impact did this have on the American citizens and how they view their government? Well, this led our former president Barack Obama to try and close Guantanamo Bay once he stepped into office, but the prison was never closed, and the prison never actually closed. And a recent survey showed that 50% of the participants that took the survey think that Guantanamo Bay should be closed because of the things that go onto the prisons, like physically assaulting, waterboarding, starving the detainees. But since our recent new president, Donald Trump, he wants to keep it open, and he wants to put bad people, or as he says, loaded up with some bad dudes. So Joey.
Well, how exactly do they know what the conditions are like inside the prison? Or
They have had people go into the prison and actually, they have first-person accounts of people, and there's a book that was published by a prisoner or detainee that shows the experience of what he had, and some of the text is blocked out for personal information. So,
what was his name again?
Lockdown Bomedian.
Yeah, is he still working for I forget what you guys said.
The Red Crescent?
Yeah, the Red Crescent.
Well, since he was transferred to Paris, I don't believe that. I think he found a new job. I wasn't able to find exactly what, but I know that he wasn't working for the Red Crescent anymore.
No.
When he was ransacked, Bomedian, was that in America or was that
in his home in Bosnia?
Bosnia.
and then
was
they
at
brought
an American embassy when he got arrested, right?
and then he got brought to America after he got
He was
arrested.
brought to a U.S.
Cuba.
territory, which was
Cuba.
William.
How many people in the prison are actually terrorists?
Well, so they they transferred 17 detainees, so I'm assuming the 42 left were considered terrorists.
But over the number of years, how many detainees went through Guantanamo Bay?
On the website that I read out the article, it said 780 detainees were took to Guantanamo Bay, and only 17 were transferred. So I'm assuming that most of them are still there.
Did you find out how many were released because it was false information or they weren't?
Oh, so I wasn't able to find out how many were released because of false information, but the 17 that were transferred because there was no evidence against them, and they weren't terrorists, I guess.
Was there any I don't want to say reward, but
Compensation.
yeah, compensation for not being
No.
What's waterboarding?
It's when you put them.
You put a rag over their face and
And
then
they're
you pour
lying
water
on
on it
flat.
slowly at a steady rate, and it makes you
Hot
feel
water?
like you're drowning. No, just regular cold water.
You're just
It's
on
horrible.
your back and they pour water on
Yeah,
your
and
face with a rag.
you're inhaling it makes you feel like you're drowning. It's just
It's like torture.
yeah.
It is torture.
Any more questions?
So going back to what Joey's question was, and sort of like that, there were a lot of photos that were leaked of prisoners being abused physically, sexually, emotionally by
The guards?
prison guards, essentially, so army personnel. Dogs were used as scare tactics.
And they were hung just barely off their feet by 2 chains, and lights were just.
Yeah. This is what really exposed a lot of the CIA torture.
Mechanisms.
Yes, between Guantanamo and then some of the Abu Ghraib and Bagram, I believe, is another one where you have these black site torture chamber places to interrogate people.
And
we don't know
they
where
were
the
kept in
black-
dungeon-like conditions.
Essentially.
Any more questions?